Hello, Beth Jacob congregation. This is Rabbi Adam Rubin, and I'm offering these words from Vancouver, BC. Judith, Elior, Naama, and I are so excited to move to Mendota Heights. We're planning on coming in late June, and we're in the thick of preparation. So we're very, very excited, and we've had just wonderful contacts with people from Beth Jacob to help us feel ready and prepared, and we're very grateful. When I first discovered that my first Devar Torah at Beth Jacob, other than the one I gave for my job interview there, was on the double parsha of Tazria-Metzora. I'm not going to say I was disappointed. My official position is that all of the parshiot in the Torah possess Kedusha, holiness, in equal measure. All are filled with meaning, and all call out Darsheni, interpret me. But I will say that some are more challenging than others. The truth is that it's difficult to find contemporary meaning in Tazria-Metzora, which is devoted to impure states that manifest themselves as skin diseases. Difficult, but it's not impossible. We Jews, who have been perennial outcasts, ought to read the Torah's account of the leper with particular care. And needless to say, the idea of being cast out of the camp, of a quarantine, so to speak, is especially relevant today. Throughout history, lepers have been demonized and feared, quarantined, and often even physically sent out of society to go and live in leper colonies. It's hard to fathom a more extreme version of the outcast. Surely then, there is something in the leper story that we need to know. Our double reading this week covers the central discussion of leprosy in the Torah. At the end of Parashat Tazria, we begin to catalog all manner of skin afflictions and finally come upon leprosy. Then in Parashat Metzora, which literally translates into the parasha of the leper, we move to the process of curing that person, of healing the disease. This cure takes place through a set of mysterious rituals. The priest orders 2 birds, one of which he slaughters and the other he sets free. He dips 2 kinds of wood into the bird's blood and sprinkles the blood 7 times onto the leper. Then the leper washes his clothes, shaves off all of his hair, and bathes in water. After 7 days, he's pronounced clean. Yet even after the leper is fully cured, before the 7-day clock starts, as soon as he undergoes the ritual and bathes, we read, Ve'achar yavo el hamachaneh. After that, he shall enter the camp. Now this is surprising, since we were told earlier, when we first read about leprosy, he shall be unclean as long as the disease is on him. Unclean meaning tameh, ritually impure. Being unclean, he shall sit alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. Badad yeshev, michutz lamachaneh moshavo. Hear that again. Being unclean, he shall sit alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. He sits alone. It's very stark, very sad language. Yet his aloneness doesn't last long. The Torah launches right into a detailed procedure for treating the leper, and as soon as that begins, we bring him or her right back into the camp. There's no leper colony here, not even a week of exile. There are still precautionary measures taken, but the leper comes back into the camp among his or her people. That's how God wants us to deal with this person, to help her and bring her back in. But that model doesn't last. There's a disturbing account of the leper in Jewish tradition. It appears in the last chapter of Tractate Sanhedrin in the Bavli, in the Babylonian Talmud. And it's one of the most fascinating sections arguably in the entire Talmud. The rabbis deal with all kinds of major theological issues there, and one of the questions they ask is, when will the Mashiach come? When will the Messiah arrive? Many cryptic answers are given, and they read like riddles. There's even a, you could say, radical opinion that there will be no Messiah for Israel. But one of the most striking answers is given in a story that features our old friend, the leper, and it reads as follows. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi came upon Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet, standing by the entrance to the cave of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. He asked him, "When will the Messiah come?" Eliyahu replied, "Go and ask him yourself." "Where does he sit?" Answer, "At the entrance to the city." "And by what signs will I recognize him?" Answer, "He is sitting among the poor lepers. They all untie their bandages all at once when they need to rebandage themselves. But he unties and rebandages in parts one by one, thinking, maybe I'll suddenly be needed, and I want to be ready at any minute." So the answer to the question of when the Mashiach will come in this story is, the Mashiach is already here, but you don't notice him. In fact, he's a total outcast, a leper. That means by all rights, in fact, by God's order, we should be doing everything we can to bring him in and heal him. But instead, he sits there with the other lepers, waiting for us. Perhaps it's at this point that we ought to make it clear that none of these stories is really about leprosy, at least not as we know it today. There is some sort of skin affliction going on, and we usually translate it as leprosy, but most scholars now think that the Hebrew word tzara'at refers to some other kind of disease. In fact, the classical commentators generally agree that though it had a physical manifestation, it was a kind of spiritual malady. If that's true, it gives an entirely different meaning to all of these stories. The one who sits alone outside the camp is suffering spiritually. When we go out to heal that person and to bring him or her in, we are tending not just to their body, but to their aching soul. Maybe that's why this person is brought back during the week before he or she is fully cured. Because in a sense, bringing the leper back into the camp is the cure. But what happens? Time passes, society hardens, and we begin to forget. We begin to forget to bring people in. We forget those who are suffering spiritually. They are left to sneak their way or fight their way back into the community. And then perhaps they eventually give up. They sit outside, nursing their wounds, waiting for something to change. Meanwhile, there we are, just through the gate, also waiting for the redemption, waiting for the Mashiach, for Geula, waiting for the Mashiach to come and save us when he's right there behind the wall. We wait for him on one side while he waits for us on the other. That's why in Sefer Echa, the book of Lamentations, which we read on the day we mourn the destruction of Jerusalem on Tisha B'Av and beg in agony for our redemption, it's why it begins as follows, with what might be called leper language. Echa yashva vadad ha'ir rabati am. Alas, the city, once great with people, sits alone. Now, back in the Talmud, in our story, it ends with Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi going up to the leper Messiah and asking him, Amarle, le'emat atemar, when will you come, Master? Amarle, hayom, today, he answered. The rabbi is confused. Today? He goes back to Eliyahu and says, he lied to me. He said he would come today, but he is not. Eliyahu explains that, no, it's true. He will come today. But what he meant was today, as it appears in a line from Tehillim, from Psalms. Hayom, im b'kolo tishma'u. Today, if you will hear God's voice. In other words, redemption could come today, any day, any moment. But first, for that to happen, we have to hear God's voice. And what does God say? We've long forgotten, but it was right there in our parashah, in chapter 14, verse 3, in Sefer Vayikra in Leviticus. In the beginning of the procedure for curing the, I'll put in air quotes, the leper. When it has been reported to the priest shall go outside the camp if the priest sees the leper. V'yatsa kohen el michutz lamachaneh. In other words, the Redeemer doesn't come to us. We go out to find the Redeemer. We go out to the sick, to the suffering, to outcasts of all kinds. We comfort them, we cleanse them, and we heal them. And we bring them back into the camp, in through the gates, back into the community. When we remember how to do that, our redemption is at hand. In fact, maybe that is our redemption. The leper, it turns out, may just be the one who can save us all. I wish all of you a Shabbat of peace, of menucha, of rest, and of health. Take care.